What a season! Our Stanford Cardinal just finished year 7. In the national championship, we took on North Texas, a true David versus Goliath matchup. This time, though, Goliath ended up on top 24-7. The first national championship for the Stanford Cardinal in almost a century. Now, while North Texas definitely made some big plays, 2 interceptions off of Gordon Draft, he also had 2 touchdowns to match, finding George Ball for 1 and the senior in Deshaun Blouse for the 2nd. Surprisingly, though, it was Daniel Kramer, tight end 2, that led the team in receptions. And on the defensive front, a phenomenal performance from Rashad Lord, who had 4 tackles for a loss, 3.5 sacks. Rounding out year 7, the highest mark the Cardinal have been in 90 years. And that is where we open up play here today, or more so a lot of background work as we have the full offseason to go through. And I do expect that we're going to see a large chunk of our starting lineup leave. Now, before we get to the start of the offseason here, one quick thing to talk about, and that is how this series is going to move forward. We've been through 7 seasons, 104 episodes, this being the 105th. I put a poll out on the community tab, now post tab on this channel. If you have not voted, do go vote. This poll will remain open until we start our next season. As it currently stands, you all have voted largely in favor for this series to continue until college football 26. No changes, 1-game episodes, roll as we have been doing. If that is to win out, I ask one thing of you all. If you enjoyed this series, if you've been watching, make sure you either are hitting that bell icon in the bottom right, scrolling down, hitting that sub button, and tapping that like button as well. It really goes a long way in helping out this channel. And if you really enjoy this content and know someone who might enjoy as well, why don't you go ahead and share it to them as well. We're not going to start a new series. I would love to bring some more people to this series as we are having a lot of fun here. But that is the plan, at least as it stands moving forward. We're going to continue as we have been, coming off a 24-7 national championship win. But let's start to conclude season 7 at its total. Going over the stats here, Gordon Draft 3,300 passing yards. He had 38 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. One of the cleanest quarterback seasons we've had here in quite some time. 68% complete. He finished with a 190.7 QBR. That's pretty good here for us. Sorensen, most likely, if Gordon Draft is to leave, will be stepping up as our next starting quarterback, and he looked pretty good during his time out there. Savoy, I would not be surprised if he would look to transfer this offseason. Getting to the running game, Zach Thompson. Well, we didn't even focus much on the running game this year. 1,300 rushing and 74 yards. He had 12 touchdowns, surprisingly same as Gordon Draft. He was a very good runner here for us, averaging just about 5 yards per carry. Did have 5 fumbles on the year, 2 for Zach Thompson. Receiving, no 1,000-yard receivers. Patrick Moses led us as the redshirt junior, and I would expect, with him being that 92, that he might declare early. And I'm going to say it now. I'll say it again when we get to that point. We are not going to keep anyone from going to the draft if they choose to do so. As for Deshaun Blouse, a phenomenal receiver here for the Stanford Cardinal. Personally, he's been my favorite. Let me know who you think has been your favorite receiver. But he rounds out a very strong career as a Stanford Cardinal, a 4-year starter. Did get to play, I believe, in 1 or 2 games as a true freshman. But ever since his redshirt freshman campaign, he has been on the field. He's played on the outside. He's played on the inside. It was not as good as his sophomore year. A little bit less in terms of receptions, yards as well. But he finished with more touchdowns than he had in any season prior. And even though he's an 86, I hope he makes it to the league. We also saw a lot of George Ball this year. He ends up with 635 yards, 4 touchdowns to lie heavy in the passing game. Do we end up sticking with that in the next season? I think that might shift as he is set to become our primary back. Blocking wise, it was not as good of a year for Enrique Heath, our All-American, who has been very good. I expect he is another guy who is going to go to the draft early as a redshirt junior. 10 sacks given up for him. Ahala will be most likely graduating, maybe a late round pick. He gave up 10. The rest of the interior actually did pretty solid. Getting to the defense, who vastly improved the second half of this season. It was Thad Smith who led us in tackles with 88. He had 34 solo, which also leads this group. As for tackles for a loss, you have Cassius Sampson with 33. Wasn't as big of a year as, again, his sophomore campaign where he won the Heisman, but it was still a very, very productive year. Same for Rashad Lord, a first year starting here with the Stanford Cardinal. He transferred in for his junior year. Kiki Harulahu, 16 TFLs. Augustine, the redshirt freshman, also had 16. Thad Smith, 15 with Pashal, and even Turner, surprisingly, in double digits despite his lack of play. Sack leader was Cassius Sampson. I was wondering if Rashad Lord would get that mark because he was so productive. He missed out by just 1 sack, 18 and 19 respectively. Augustine, 8.5, a really good freshman year for him. Pashal, 6.5. He ended up taking over for Blair, and I think that was the best choice. Our defense started to play a lot better with Brian Pashal out there. Kiki had some sacks and a few more down the line. But the big note for this defense, setting a Stanford single season record, was Tim Easy with 13 interceptions. He picked off all but maybe 2 or 3 quarterbacks that he faced this season. And that, I think, is due to the partnership with Alex Marcook, who took away the other half of the field, forcing those throws to Tim Easy. I think both of these guys, as redshirt juniors, should be heading to the league. We'll see if that is the case. Kevin Salmon played very well in the slot, which was good news for us because that was where Marcook formerly played. He moved to the outside this season, played phenomenally. All in all, the defense, massive improvements. We did force quite a few fumbles here. Of those 10, though, we only recovered 1 fumble. So we've got work to do in that category. Nathan Henderson did pick up our only safety of the season. And as for touchdowns, we had 5 defensively, 2 for Tim Easy, 2 for Kevin Salmon, and 1 for Darren Sr., who wasn't even a starter. He was strictly a rotational player. Even in the 4-4 package, he was a backup. The one player for us that did not have a good year was Sam Ritter. After a really good freshman year, his sophomore slump hit in a big way. 64% on his field goals, almost 100 though on his extra points. So I guess we'll take that. Now, as for yearly awards, we already saw these, but we are going to go over them in the offseason. Matt Draper wins the Heisman for NC State. Cassius Sampson did finish in the running here, down at 4. Your player of the year, though, that did go to Cassius Sampson. We also had Gordon Draft and Rashad Lord all in the running. North Texas, they did have their quarterback in Deshaun Sedline, and he played a pretty good game. Just didn't have the help around him. Your head coach of the year does go to Barry Bearington. Just behind him, Brad Perkins of North Texas. Best quarterback, that goes to Gordon Draft. We've talked about it several times this year. You can't argue it now. This has been the best quarterback for the Stanford Cardinal since Andrew Luck. And when it comes to best defensive player as well, so many Cardinal to highlight. But of course, it's going to go to Cassius Sampson. Rashad Lord just behind. Alex Augustine, as a redshirt freshman, makes this list number 6. Kiki Harulahu, he's at 8. Tim Easy finishes at 11. However, he finishes first when it comes to best defensive back. You also have Kevin Salmon, Max Schlegel, Alex Marcook, and Ty Hawley. The entire starting group here for the Stanford Cardinal finish in the top 6. Now, when it comes to best running back, our 2 are in the top 3. Going to Zach Thompson at 1. Adeyemi, the guy we played in the playoffs, unfortunately he got a little banged up. We didn't get to see him at his best. Larry Sulai, though, finishes 3rd, primarily, again, as that guy out of the backfield catching the ball. That's a power back. We, however, did not get any love when it came to our receivers. Not a single one make it in the running. Lombardi, though, we got our entire starting defensive line here. Cassius Sampson, Rashad Lord, Augustine. We also have Pashal down the line. Now, Deshaun Sedline, he did win an award this year. That is the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm. As for our quarterback, despite winning best quarterback, he is not on this list. But once again, our defensive line, are running rampant here. Best defensive end, Augustine makes it at 5. He played a hybrid role. That probably helped him out. But again, it's going to go to Cassius Sampson and Rashad Lord. And again, one of those rare occurrences here. No interior offensive lineman for us for the best interior. Best tight end, though, once again, does go to Emmanuel Gomez. Does he look to go to the league as a true junior 85 overall? We will find out. On the list also is Kramer. He didn't really do that much this year, but when he did have his time to shine, he made some big plays. And as for essentially the best coordinator award, that goes to Josh Aruarie, our defensive coordinator. Nate Vick, our OC, he finished second in the race. The Mean Greens also finished third and fourth respectively, and perhaps that means both of our teams are going to be out our coordinators. Best linebacker, that does go to Ohio State's Troy O'Daniel. Kiki, he finishes second. Thad Smith, fourth. No love again for our center, does not make the list. That goes to Edward Waller. And rounding out with special teams, Lou Groza, not going to be us. Again, Sam Ryder did not have a good year. Best punter does not go to Fatele Mays. He really didn't have to do much. Best returner, again, not us. We didn't actually have that many returns this year. And the last thing we need to check is the All-Americans. First team does not go to our quarterback, though Zach Thompson does make it into that list. Offense, no one else. Defensively, no one else, despite having the best offense in college football. Second team-wise, the Heisman is on that one, so things are always weird here when it comes to All-Americans. We do get Kona Osgood, though. So only 2 offensive players in the league's best offense make it as an All-American. I don't know what that is about then. Tim Easy does make it as a second-team guy, leading the league in interceptions. This list is a little bit crazy. Cliff Robinson makes it on the freshman team. David Council, Augustine and Blair both make it, so 2 guys that did see some starting time. Augustine the full year. But very strange when it comes to the national team. Pac-12 wise, freshmen, we do have Virgil Rowland, Cliff Robinson, Rick Regas, who did play a little bit. Council, Augustine, Blair. You got Tyrone Heggie, Manu Cave, who really didn't play at all. I think he was redshirted. And then a safety in Kafka. First team, though, there is Gordon Draft. Zach Thompson also ends up making it. Patrick Moses, Miles Vaughn, Kona Osgood, Cassius Sampson didn't even make it anywhere on the list, despite being in the Heisman race. You also have Brian Pichal, Jason Blair, Kiki Haru-Lahu, Tim Easy, Alex Marcook. Second team, you have Enrique Heath down here. Didn't have his best year, understand that. Nathan Henderson makes the list. Rashad Lord, Thad Smith, Max Schlegel, and Fatele Mays. Again, All-Americans, very strange here. We don't get the love we deserve. But that will round out the wrap-up and move us to arguably the most important part of the offseason. Who all is leaving? Now, I've been talking a lot the last handful of episodes about all the key juniors and seniors that we have, as I expect a lot of them to leave. But it would be quite funny if a lot of them don't end up leaving. We know the seniors do. How many juniors declare for the draft? We have only 4. Moses expected, Enrique Heath expected, Kona Osgood, I could see that as well, and Tim Easy. Those are the only 4 who are projected to go early. And as I mentioned earlier, I will mention again, I will not be persuading anybody to stick around. So they will all go to the draft. On top of them, how many other players are projected to go? You have Thad Smith, projected 6th rounder, and Rashad Lord, a 3rd. That means Cassius Sampson is looking to stick around for his redshirt senior season, as well as our quarterback in Gordon Draft, which is quite a shock to me. I definitely thought they would have all win. That means we have projected 2 first rounders, both Enrique Heath and Patrick Moses. 2nd round for Kona Osgood. 2 third-round picks and a 6th. I thought we would have had a lot more people here on this list. They do not have Deshaun Blauset projected to be drafted, despite a pretty solid career for a college player. Zach Thompson, he's not even projected again because these overalls, I believe, are below 90, seems to be about the cutoff. If we look at the 6th rounder, that is Thad Smith, an 89. So there seems to be a hard cutoff maybe around 88 or so for players to be drafted. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't actually end up being drafted. Curtis Aneni also graduating, and Fotu, the lineman who never really got much of any playing time here for us. Ahala, he was about a 3-4 year starter for us. So we are still losing a lot of big names, but it was not as many as I expected we would have. But how about the results then? We had quite a few projected. Does anyone else end up being drafted here late on? No, just those expected. We still finished with 2 in the first round, Moses and Heath. Kona Osgood, Tim Easy, both second round picks. Rashad Lord does go in the third. Thad Smith moves up to a 5th round pick. So someone is about to land some pretty good UDFAs in at least Zach Thompson and Deshaun Blousay. Both could be pretty good candidates if we look to do a Madden Superstar, or whatever they call that mode, a My Player Career, because they should both be in the league. As for North Texas, their quarterback in Deshaun Sendline, he goes 7th round. Here's a surprise though, Syracuse, they end up having quite a few players go, none in the first round. They have 3 second rounders and quite a few down the line. Texas, as expected, a big school, they do have quite a few that end up being drafted. Wisconsin, they had a pretty good team. They had Eric Gatto, the league's best running back. He ends up being a 1st round pick. Georgia, we all know the battle between us and them. They did have quite a few end up being drafted, Whipple being one, who did have some good games against us. Bofelli ends up being drafted a 3rd rounder, and I would have argued that Zach Thompson was a much better running back than him. They also had their other running back in Dykes get drafted. He played better, I believe, than Bofelli. All in all, a couple good guys here that are no longer going to be with the Georgia Bulldogs, most likely with the Philadelphia Eagles. Kansas State, they had a really good year this year. Eric Miners, their star left tackle, we didn't get to face him. I believe he was injured in our matchup, but he went as a 3rd round pick. They had a few late round options. Adeyemi, who was number 2, I believe, in running backs this year for the best running back award, he was a 7th round pick. So it seems like no matter how a player plays, it's really overall that decides where they get drafted. LSU, they have a pretty good bunch as well. Didn't get to play them, but I do want to find a lot more different teams to play this year. Miami, they put a lot of players into the NFL draft this year. Hip and Hammer, I know we tried to recruit a Hip and Hammer. I don't remember if that was Tommy or if it was an offensive lineman, but he ends up going in the 2nd round as a redshirt senior. Michigan with 4 first round picks. That is the most I've seen from any team. They were beaten by North Texas in overtime in the playoffs. They had a running back go round 1, a center in Waller, who did win best center this year. Your Heisman winning quarterback from NC State, he goes in the 5th round. He was a redshirt senior, 87 overall. So Thompson as well as Blousay arguably should have made it as a 5th to 7th round pick then. Oregon had a couple guys get drafted. Deontay Ayu, the guy who we couldn't stop his speed downfield. I want to say he was a 99 or 98 speed. He's drafted in the 2nd round. Their linebacker, who at one point did win best linebacker, AJ Miranda, he goes 3rd round. And Alex Mazza, another linebacker, very good, he went 4th. And here's a team who put up some big numbers in the draft. You got Penn State, another 4 going in the 1st round. Only 2 teams have done that, a receiver, tight end, center, and left tackle in Gesicki. But I am just surprised. We only had 6 players go in this draft class, which means we should be primed to run it back again for a national championship. But who, if any, do we look to add to that roster? As it stands right now, we already have around 23 players who have declared for us, and we also only had 8 seniors. We recruited a lot more, expecting a lot more juniors to decide to leave early. That ended up not quite being the case, so I believe we were probably already over the top in terms of who we could go after. Now, I still expect to make some cuts to add some realism, some forced transfers of 5-star players who are not starting for us and should be moving on to start elsewhere. Which reminds me, we had a couple players transfer last season. How did they end up doing this year? As for Stan Madden, the safety, he ended up transferring to Buffalo. We did have, I believe, 2 players go to Buffalo. He finished his year with 64 tackles, 2 TFLs. The second one was Kamara, who was a left end. He is not on their roster, so he might be looking to transfer again. Morgan Harvin, though, he is still at Army, the former 3-star recruit. As for what he did this year, 40 grabs, 576 yards, 3 touchdowns, the most amount of production he's seen since his true freshman campaign. Former Cardinal quarterback in Trey Sutton, he transferred to Indiana, and he put up some fairly respectable numbers. 2,400 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He hit 68%, and he did run the ball actually a pretty good bit, 400 yards for 5 more touchdowns. And fellow former Cardinal quarterback Dwayne Azuma, he went to Louisville, and pretty similarly put up about the same numbers, 3,300 passing, 24 touchdowns, though 10 interceptions, 64% complete for him. And he did run around again for about 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. And in fact, Deshaun Kamara indeed is looking to transfer for the second time in his college career. Right now, he seems to be favoring Hawaii, which is where he's from. And as for any sort of transfers that I think we should go after, we are pretty set at every position. You could maybe look at safety. Max Schlegel will be becoming a senior, but we'll see improvement already in 84, 86 with some boost. You have Ty Holly, who's a redshirt sophomore, will become a junior. Currently 81, 82. He will be set to improve. Plus, you also have guys like Kafka behind who might see a pretty good jump as well. I don't think there is much work for us to do. Even at kicker, I mean, maybe you could look for someone. It was a bad year for Sam Ritter, but overall wise, he's not awful. I think he just needs a rebound season. Need to make sure that we have a punter signed, but outside of that, I think we're pretty good with recruiting. And in fact, we did land a 3-star gem punter, so we are pretty solid to get going here. We could take a look just to see what kind of talent there is sitting out here, looking at overall rank. There is a receiver out of SMU, a 4-star, would be a sophomore. Actually, no, he's sophomore now, would be a junior. Physical type, I just don't think we need any more receivers, but there are teams interested, or players interested, I should say. Quarterback-wise, if Gordon Draft didn't end up staying, there was a 3-star quarterback out of Boise State who would be the top option for us. Running back-wise, we had one option from Oregon State in Jamie Keel. We don't need a fullback. We had a redshirt freshman this year. We could get 2 of the top 3 players in the transfer portal. The other receiver from BYU in Silas Gilliam, who I feel like I remember playing against, and he actually had a pretty good game against us. But as for weak spots potentially for us at safety, the top handful of options at free are not interested. And at strong, they're not interested either. So there really is nothing for us to do here in the portal. But with that, I think we are good to move forward with the guys we have already signed. A lot of high-end talent, a lot of 5-stars, a lot of 4-star gems mixed in as well, 5-star gems even. And as it stands, we are the number 1 class by a pretty good amount of points. Unless Florida State lands a lot of players, there is no catching us with 12 5-stars, 8 4-stars, of which all are going to be gems, and the 1 3-star is a punter who's also a gem. And as recruiting comes to an end, indeed, Florida State cannot do enough to catch up. And for the 3rd, maybe 4th year in a row, Coach Bearington has brought in the top class in college football, this time by 32 points. But where are these players planning to play? We have position changes to go through. Going just to see if we have any athletes, and we do have one, Jonathan Dugan, a tight end, 6'7", 267 is where his tendency lies. Fullback is at the highest. He also is a speed rusher, which we don't need at outside linebacker, would be a left end, so he's a very versatile player. And if we just go to look at his skill set in general here, he's got 85 speed with 83 strength. That could fit both at tight end and edge rusher here for us. Carrying isn't too bad. Has some break tackle, a little bit of some stiff arm in there. A little bit of some moves for a tight end. Some solid hands, 84 for catching traffic, 82 spec catch at 80. Short route running is really good. Medium is at an okay spot to start with. Need to work on the deep route running. Release, though, is pretty good at a 74. Got good jumping. And then in terms of defensive stats here, blocking wise, 84, not too bad. Defensively, 88 for tackle, which is really good. 84 hit power. Block shedding is at a 70. 77 finesse. No power moves really to work on whatsoever. So he would have some upside as a run stopper. Does actually have some fairly decent cover skills as well. Don't think we need a 6'7" off-ball linebacker, but that he could be a pick machine if that were to be the case. Let's break it down position by position. Emmanuel Gomez will be gone after this year. Kramer, we've got one more year. We do have two other tight ends behind. He could be an edge rusher. We are 3 deep here at left. Cassius Sampson will be graduating after this next season for sure. Henderson will have for an extra year. At the right end spot, we have a lot of young talent here. And potentially some of these guys might shift around to left end or right end. Augustine maybe shifts to defensive tackle. We might have to wait until the results from the offseason training and then kind of go from there with those guys. Off ball, we have a lot of linebackers. So while I think he could definitely do a good job at linebacker, I think we have too many high-end guys here for us to add another player to that category. I think tight end is the way to go. And with the way that we've seen a lot of these tight ends, or more so lack of develop, it might be good to add another guy here. Kari Madu, he is almost capped out. His route running could get a little bit better, but the hands is all done and dusted. And he hasn't even had a start yet. He was redshirted his freshman year. As for Selvia, who did occasionally come out this season in some 3 tight end sets, he does still have some improvement for tight ends. Hands, route running, and block shedding could all improve. Kramer, he's coming into his junior season. He is capped out. And Emmanuel Gomez, his final season, he could improve this year, which is quite shocking. I thought he would have been capped out by this point as well. The route running could look to get a little bit better. IQ, a little bit of some power, which I'm all for tight ends not having low injury. So for Jonathan Dugan, I think his best position for us and where he would see the most success in the future would be at tight end with some of the caps we have with the 3rd and 4th guys. So to tight end, he goes. But now comes the more difficult part of maybe trying to shift some players around. We did bring in 2 quarterbacks in this offseason. First being Troy Sorge and Nate House, field general and a scrambler. Now, as mentioned, I think Savoy would look to transfer. He's going to be a junior here. He does not really have a path to the starting lineup. Maybe could be a starter for 1 year here, but I think we saw better play from Justin Sorensen. I think he is our true backup and future at quarterback. So that would leave us with 4, with Savoy leaving. If anyone could shift positions, it would probably be Sorge, but 84 speed, I don't think there's a spot he goes. As for running back, we are stacked here. A lot of talent, and I really like Sulai, and I like Jewel. We haven't got to see much of Joe Wesovich. Where he ends up fitting best is another power back here for us, but that is going to be Sulai's job this year, especially with 98 break tackle. I think Jewel would come in as a change of pace guy and kind of take over that receiving role for the Cardinal with 73 catching, pretty similar to Joe Wesovich. He has better catch in traffic, better spec catch. Short route running is a lot better. Just in general, the route running altogether is better. So perhaps Wesovich does take over that role that Larry Sulai had last season. Still, though, would like to get a little bit of Taj Jewel. He just had a really good burst of speed out there. Receiving wise, I think we're pretty solid here. We don't have too many excess like we have in the past. We did bring in 1 new guy this year in Gordon Lockett. And after training, unless something does not happen for Darren Sturm, Lockett will probably be redshirted and will rock with 6. Now, as for the offensive line, I think we could move some centers around here. We do have quite a few, and we are a little bit lighter at the right guard spot, where we have a sophomore and a redshirt freshman. We'll probably end up having 2 redshirt freshmen there. Who would best move over to that spot. We need someone with a little bit more ability to pull. With that, we need a little bit more speed. Acceleration looks pretty good here for Pete Morton. He is an agile 6'1", 303 out of Henderson, Nevada. He has pretty balanced blocking ability with some solid lead. Impact is pretty good. I think he would fit pretty well over at the right guard spot, so we will move him over, and that's actually his best fit. Getting to the defensive side here, defensive line-wise, we only have 3 at left, and we have 5 over at the right side. And we don't really have a specific style of player. Cassius Sampson is a speed as well as Henderson. Henry is power. And we have quite a few power, 2 speeds here at the bottom. Let's go with the taller guy out of Chesapeake, Virginia, Ty Ekiyor. He will switch over to left end just to help balance out these groups. And for the rest of the defense, we are pretty well balanced. 1 more extra at left outside. Corners, safeties, we are pretty stacked at. Maybe we could shift around some frees and strongs if these guys fit the other side. And just taking a quick look here, Mike Nicholson potentially could fit more of that strong safety role. He is a true freshman. We just recruited him. He does need to have some tackle ability, 74. Pretty high for the bunch that he is in. Hit power, though, is a little bit lower. But that man coverage is better than the zone, and we need that man when it comes to our strong safeties. I think he's a player in line to switch to strong. It is his better fit. We'll make that a change. As it stands for right now, Nicholson, Kafka, and Pua, same overall. Pua and Kafka should improve. So on to training results. It is then the second biggest part of the off season for us, especially since we had a lot of players stick around. Did we get any better? Already we were a 94 overall as a team. Our new highest overall player is Kiki Harulahu. When we brought him in, we expected this would be the case at some point in his career. It happens as a redshirt senior. Not sure if Cassius Sampson really improved at all. I wish that was one thing that they had improved here with this screen, is to show us just how much these players did improve, because we don't really see that. At least not easily. You'd have to remember or take screenshots of the screen prior to. But let's break this down position by position. Gordon Draft, 86 overall as a senior, 91 with the boost. So that means even with a really good year this year, he still might not be drafted very high overall like we saw with a lot of the players drafted. If we take a look at his skill set here, he's a star dev. He does not have any super high mentals or physicals, all of them being either that silver or gold. His rating wise, he's completely capped out. Arm at a 92. Accuracy, we have 82 for the deep, though he did show a good bit of improvement on that last year. Short is at a 90, medium is at an 89, so he's really not a super highly accurate quarterback that gets the job done. His quickness, 88 speed with 92 acceleration, 94 stamina. Savoy did look like he improved a little bit here. Speed, however, I don't believe did improve much, if any. He does have the strongest arm on the team, though, 96, with some pretty solid accuracies. These all getting boosts, though, with the coaches that we have. But Justin Sorensen, he's really not that far behind. In fact, if you shift some points around, he's basically the same quarterback. Arm strength is a little bit lower, but he makes up for that now with 88 speed. That did improve, which means we will be able to keep the same offense that we have been running with Gordon Draft, with Justin Sorensen. It's just going to be with far less acceleration. Getting to the running backs, Larry Sulai, 87 with a boost. He's at a 90. Wesovich, 85, 87. We've got Taj Jewell, 80, 83. Bigham's also 80, 83. And Whitaker, he's still at a 78. I don't think he saw much improvement at all. And I think he would be a candidate to cut. There's guys in front, or to have be a late transfer, because there is not much of an opportunity for him to jump ahead of these freshmen or fellow sophomores. I think he will be a part of our late transfer group. The fullback in Babineau, he goes up to a 76. Now this provides a little bit more opportunity for us to have a true fullback with some speed. 81 and 81 acceleration. He has some decent carrying at a 79. Blocking wise, it could still use a little bit of some improvement, but lead is at a 79, which is big here for us. Did we get to see some of that catching rating? 71, so I wouldn't put him out there before any of our other tight ends. But he's another option for us that means our tight ends can actually do the tight end job rather than also playing fullback. And speaking of tight ends, Manuel Gomez 85-88, Kramer 83-86, Selvia 82-85, and Madu 77-80. So still a really solid tight end group, and I would like to continue running some heavier tight end looks, getting these guys involved. Both Gomez, 2-time tight end of the year, and Kramer, they should be a really good duo. There's speed here, there's strength, there's run block. On the outside though, this is where we're going to have a big change. Really the biggest change, I think, for both sides of the ball is at receiver. Virgil Rowland, a true 94 overall as a redshirt sophomore. I don't think that there is any way that he gets by as a junior. In fact, he could declare after this year. 95 speed, 95 acceleration. He's got 99 catching, 99 catch in traffic, 98 spec catch. Short route running's at an 88, 94 for medium, 86 for deep, with 91 release. George Ball does not have as good of release. He's an 85. He played on the outside last year, but I've been waiting for Ben Vallejo to flourish because he's shown signs. He's not the speediest of our receivers. In fact, he's one of the slowest. Not the slowest, that is Darren Sturm, who did not improve much. We might need to check his caps because if he's not improving, maybe he's another guy that would look to transfer because we want guys that are going to improve. But as for Vallejo, he does have the second best awareness, not as good of hands compared to the top two, but he has some good catch in traffic. Spec catch is there. Short route running is the best on the team, with a little bit of some medium. Again, not the best on the team. He's not a deep route runner. The release is there. 6'2", 211 versus 6'4", 188. I think between Vallejo and Ball is where we're going to have our competition for who's playing on the slot and who's going to be that third receiver who maybe goes to the outside while the other one shifts in. I think the hands are obviously far better there for George Ball, who has had dropping issues in the past. But we are going to have a full new set here, and perhaps we even see a breakout of Bargava into that group, who's primarily just been a special teamer for us. Offensive line-wise, starting with the left tackles, this is where we had two 90s. Miles Vaughn, a 90-95, and Cliff Robinson, an 88-94. We also have a Card who's 83-89, so the left tackle is getting a lot of big boosts. Left guard-wise, Ben Cortez, 85-90, and then you have Regas, 82-88. A lot of really good players sitting along the line here. Conklin, 87-91. Barcow behind him, an 80-85. With Ringo 78-83. Right guard wise, the weaker looking group so far, so we might have to shift some players around, as technically we do have a better player at left guard in Cortez and Regas. Maybe one of them shifts over and plays here, or we go with Pete Morton, the red shirt freshman, who's an 82-87, who also has Carl Lewis, 80-86. Right tackle is on the lower side again. Council, 83-88. Valerio, 82-87. So I think we're going to have to shift two guys from the left side and move them over to the right side just to help cover, basically put the best line out there that we can. Samson, we saw a 95. Henderson, a 90. And I think he is a player as well who might look to transfer. He's been here for a while. He's splashed every time he's been on the field. I believe a former 5-star player as well. Indeed, he is from Santa Ana, California, a star. He just hasn't had the time of day here. He might look to move on. But let's see what we have first at right end with Alex Augustine, a 92-90 red shirt sophomore. Another player who could look to declare after this season, which would leave us with a lot of unknown talent then. Perhaps Henderson is one of those players, a local-ish player who would stick around. At DT, Brian Paschal, 92, Blair, a 90, 88, and 89, both respectively. But they got some good talent behind him, so I don't think Augustine shifts down. I think he stays put at where he is. Going to play a new role this year on the outside, utilize a little bit more of that speed. And perhaps we just have a heavier rotation getting Henderson out on the field. Linebacker-wise, it's still a very stacked group here. Two seniors, Kiki Harulahu and Oscar Coley, both 90+ overall with their boosts. Coley 91.85, 91.96 with Kiki. You also have JP Waddle, who is at 85.89. But finally, as a senior, going to get his full time on the field is James Tuttle. Stuck around, and hopefully it pays off well for him. He's going to be a 94.89, with Lovelace, the redshirt sophomore, behind him, 83.88. On the opposite side, you have Darren Sr., who has performed well. He will see some playing time as that third, maybe fourth linebacker this year, similar to the role that we had, I believe, for Oscar Coley last year, who did actually end up playing a good chunk later on. But he's the local kid here. From Palo Alto, Oscar Coley, his senior year, he is going to be on the field as that third linebacker for sure. Cornerback-wise, Alex Markuk is sticking around for his senior year. That was a surprise. That does, however, shake up things in terms of slot and on the other outside spot. Who best fits? We take a look here. Well, right now, the man coverage best on the team is Kevin Salmon, so we need him in a good spot. He has the best press as well, so I think he needs to be on the outside. Tyrone Heggie then, with lower man coverage, 78, tied for the lowest on the team. How is his tackling ability? Not the best. Hit power is also low. You have legend Anagbar, who has been shaky at times. Has he done enough to maybe force his way onto the field? That zone coverage is the second worst on the team. Actually, the worst is Kevin Salmon, so we might not play much zone this year if that's going to be a big problem. If we need to play that zone, Heggie is far better in that category. I think we maybe start with Tyrone Heggie because he's shown more production in his limited time on the field. But if he doesn't play well, Nogbar could definitely step on in. We have a 99 speed in Rico Body and 98 in Manu Cave. So good depth here. If we need to shake things up, we will. Strong safety-wise, Schlegel, the senior, he's an 87-85. We haven't had the strongest bunch of safeties, but they've performed pretty well. No one seeing big jumps here across the board. In fact, I think there's quite a few that didn't see much of any sort of jumps. Strong safety-wise, Ty Holly, he goes up 2 overall, 82-84. Hua goes up 1. Kafka goes up 1. Kafka, keep in mind, he's the 6'5 safety, so a very intriguing player. He just has to work on that awareness and play recognition. Man coverage, though, second best at this position. Zone is at the highest. So again, we could see some change here. Catching pretty good across the board. All can tackle. All have pretty good hit power as well. Perhaps we are at a spot that some of these strong safeties may even would be a good fit at that slot corner spot as well. And in the 4-2-5 defense, they do play in that slot. So we should see a pretty good rotation then. Is it Pua? Is it Kafka? Do we give it to the senior? That awareness is better. That play rec is better. As for Ritter, I believe he does go up a little bit overall. Kick power still under 90. Kick accuracy at an 84. Awareness 79. We just need him to hit his kicks this year. Do you remember when I said that we'd probably have to cut some players? Well, apparently I was on the money when it came to what amount of spots we had open, as we sit 85-85. Now, that doesn't mean we aren't going to have some transfers. Having to force some realism here because in real life, more players are moving around than ever before, and we're not seeing that with how it is currently set up. As mentioned, I think Savoy would be moving on. He just has not been the guy here. I think he knows it, especially when we started Sorensen late in the year when we didn't have to have our starters out there, especially when draft needed that breather. So I think he probably felt a little bit of some disrespect there from Coach Barrington, and he's going to look to move on. So we will be encouraging the transfer from Savoy. Additionally, Isaiah Whitaker has fallen behind in his track to progress. I think he would also be another key guy to look to transfer. Maybe he goes to Oregon State as he is from Lebanon, but we will encourage his transfer. And I think another player that we will also encourage is going to be Darren Sturm. He did not progress. In fact, we brought in Gordon Lockett. He was already a higher overall, and then he did not improve at all. I think maybe he goes to one of the other California schools, San Jose State, perhaps. We'd play against them. They are a rival. He could look to get a little bit of some revenge against us. He'll be moving on. Another player that we didn't really talk about, but I think would be another key guy to move on, is going to be Noah Hare at free safety. He's from Henderson, Nevada. Maybe he goes and plays for UNLV, but he's a redshirt junior. He's been surpassed by redshirt freshmen, and I don't believe he's going to ever see that jump he needs to really get into that starting lineup category. So we're going to encourage him to transfer, but he did still get a ring here with the Stanford Cardinal. But now for the all-important promotion and relegation, looking back at the conference champions. You have for Conference USA between Illinois and Indiana, the two teams that constantly are bouncing back and forth with the Big Ten. Indiana wins it. For the MAC and moving back up to the Big 12, Baylor takes down the Ragin' Cajuns 24-19. The Sun Belt winner and headed to the SEC, you have Jax State, who beat FIU 41-21. FIU was ranked 25th. Jax State, after an 8-6 season, they're going to go play against some tough teams. For the American Conference, you have Boston College, who made it all the way to the semis, where they lost to North Texas. They beat Eastern Carolina 38-17. They're moving up to the ACC. And rejoining the Pac-12 is Arizona State with a 22-7 win over Nevada, winning the Mountain West. As for the Power 5 conference games, obviously we know North Texas beat Kansas State 17-14. In the SEC, it was Auburn who beat Kentucky 42-21. In the ACC, it was NC State and their Heisman winning quarterback defeating Miami 33-14. And your Big Ten championship going to Michigan 31-16 over Iowa. And obviously the Pac-12, we know that one. 48-14 dominated the USC Trojans. But with every winner, you have your losers. And dropping out of the ACC, going down to the American, is going to be Temple. For the Big 12, a team in purple wins it, a team in purple loses it. TCU, they are dropping down. And after, I believe, just one season in the Big 10, it will be Akron falling back down. As for your independents, Army, they went 12-1 this year with our former receiver on their lineup. Navy went 4-8, and Air Force went 2-10. And as we had mentioned, our rival in San Jose State and a player of ours potentially moving there, they will also be moving down in level. San Jose State is headed back to the Mountain West. And lastly, in the SEC, Sun Belt winner could not last. Troy is going back down. Surprisingly, though, Georgia, they finished 5-7, second worst here in the SEC. So as it stands, here is what each conference is looking like. The American, I mean, all of these are pretty competitive, which is why we constantly have new teams kind of bouncing back and forth. You got the ACC here looking pretty solid. Big Ten as well, who does have an odd number of teams. And I do want your guys' input. Should we perhaps start to shift things around a little bit more here so that we do start to see a little bit of some new teams, especially if we do have guys who are odd, like we saw with one of our conferences. Another one here in the MAC, potentially one of the guys in the MAC needs to then shift over to the Big Ten. If that is to be the case, perhaps Arkansas State, I feel like they would probably fit the closest to that geographical region. And in the MAC, there are no other Arkansas teams. That would, however, keep them out of the possibility of moving up and playing against Arkansas, an in-state rival. The Mountain West is also a team that has an odd number. They could potentially use with one more. Here in the pack, we are even, SEC is even, and Sun Belt is even. But how about setting up our schedule? And I swear, if once again we are on the road going to Washington, we are going to throw a fit here. And by we, I mean Coach Barrington. Scrolling down, Washington is not on the schedule. I will take that. However, looking here again, we do not have USC scheduled for the third year in a row. We do have Oregon State, Colorado. We pretty much played them yearly. Arizona State, who's moved back up. I do like that Boise State is here. I want a revenge game against them. Oregon consistently is one of the best teams here in the Pac-12. I want them in the schedule. But I would also like to have USC here. I could easily switch out Utah for USC. But I don't believe if we regenerate the schedule that changes our conference games. Let's just try it, see what happens. And indeed, no, it doesn't change any of your conference schedule. So we will have BYU in week 1. Now, one thing we could do is look to have our non-divisional games or non-conference games be against former players of ours. Army, they have Morgan Harvin, I believe his name was, the receiver, who is their number 1 receiver. There is also the former quarterbacks as well. So Indiana and Louisville we could look to add. I think that would provide more back and forth between former players than Madden, who went to Buffalo, and then the other guy who was in the transfer portal. So with these openings here, let's try to find some matchups and see who is available. We do have Indiana for the week 3 game. We do have Louisville. So we could go ahead and probably add both of them, face 2 former quarterbacks of ours, and we could shift the week 3 open here to week 4 instead and just get back-to-back games versus our former players. And for Indiana, who just moved up, would be a Big Ten team as well. And with us wanting to keep Notre Dame, that is a yearly rivalry for Stanford. That leaves us out of ability to shift anything around. And does, however, leave us with 1 game at which we need to shift to an away game. We currently have 7 home, and I believe we played Notre Dame away last time. So it would be against either Indiana or Louisville as to who we go away to. And I think Louisville would fit for where Stanford was once at for the first season here. So let's change that one to an away game. That means we'll play against one independent, Army, who just had a really good season, went 12-1, 79 overall, 80 offense, 79 defense. Louisville, SEC team, 85 overall, 84 offense, 86 defense. And Indiana, another Big Ten, 82 overall, 81 offense, 84 defense. That means we basically don't really have any setup games. You maybe count Army as that, but with them running what I assume is still an option offense, that's never really a setup game because it's so different than what everyone else plays. But I think this is a pretty good schedule. We're going to play a lot of different teams. In fact, we're not going to see a similar team outside of BYU until we get into week 5. We haven't played Oregon State, though, I believe, in a couple seasons. Colorado, that's been yearly. Haven't played Arizona State in, I believe, a couple seasons as well. Boise State we played last year, but I don't think they've been very regular here either. Oregon, that's been about yearly. Fresno State, I do believe we played last year, but we've only played them once, maybe twice in this series. Utah, we played a couple times, and Notre Dame, that's another yearly rivalry. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this schedule, and I think Coach Barrington complaining so much about having to consistently go play both at Oregon and at Washington finally got through to the committee, and we got a pretty good schedule here. We just had to win a natty. Looking forward to keeping this team at a high level. We got to set up our next recruiting board, which does also show us where we currently are. Half a star away from being a 5-star program, 94 overall, 94 on offense, 95 on defense. And we do have 13 players in total graduating, only 4 on offense, being Gordon Draft, Larry Sulai at running back, we have the tight end in Emmanuel Gomez. And then at left guard, we have Cortez. Defensively, we are going to be very senior-led. Cassius Sampson. Off ball, we got Oscar Coley, Kiki Harulahu, James Tuttle. And we also have Afa Ivy and Darren Sr. Some of these seniors really have not seen playing time yet, but will this year. Alex Markuk, we have Max Schlegel, and then we have Soma Hua. Surprisingly, coming off a national championship, we only have 7 5-stars currently interested in coming here. And only 3 of them are inside of a pipeline, which is very interesting. We have an athlete who's listed as an elusive back. I think we have a lot of running backs, but potentially he could shift to a different position, so we'll keep an eye on him or at least scout him. We have an edge rusher in Ed Gage, number 3 ranked player in the class. We have the number 1 ranked player, a running back, receiving back in Benji Redfern. We saw the offense have a lot more success this year with the ability to pass out of the backfield. So I think we should at least take a look here at Redfern. Number 1 probably for a reason. Off-ball linebacker DeMarcus Layburn. He'll be added to our list. Another off-ball in Jaden Thomas. We have several seniors, so we do need to add a lot of talent to that group. Donnell Lacumbo, he is an edge rusher. We'll add him. And then another athlete, agile, fitted towards the offensive line, but probably could play a couple different spots. We have Steve Cortez from Las Vegas, Nevada. I don't know if we really have a specific position of need. Going back again to the breakdown, we have 3 freshman quarterbacks, so we really don't need to look there. We have a couple of running backs already on the board. We don't have a single senior receiver. We do, however, have 3 junior receivers, and potentially some of them could look to graduate early. Virgil Rowland being one who might look to go to the draft already. Again, that 94 true. We have 1 tight end, but we got 4 underclassmen there. We're pretty good. Tackle, all underclassmen, only 1 senior there. So offensive lineman really isn't a big need. We'll take a look for sure. Off-ball linebacker, we do have 5 graduating seniors. So we do need to look there, though we still have quite a few underclassmen. We could maybe look at some safeties as well. This is just going to be pretty similar to last year. We're going to add talent, and we're going to be specifically looking for gems. And just going through and chucking on every single 5-star who didn't have us locked out for any which reason. We have 23 players to start to work with, and I think that's a pretty good mark considering we only have 13 players graduating. At one point, we will have to dip into the 4-stars, again, looking for gems. And scouting the last player, this does not appear to be the best recruiting class. We did, however, find 3 busts, all 5-stars, the corner in Dalton Benedict, the DT Russ McNeil, and the running back number 1, which makes it 2 years in a row that the number 1 recruit was a bust. We also were looking at the quarterback last year, decided to move off. Benji Redfern, he's at the bottom of our list here. We did find 1 gem out of this entire 23 group, Titus Byler. He is a corner, man-to-man out of Mountaintop, Pennsylvania, 6'1", 197. A good frame on him. In terms of his scouting, 99 speed, 83 man, does have 84 press. We do not know what the zone coverage is, but he looks really good. So, of course, we will be offering a scholarship. None of these other positions, however, had a gem. So if we are just looking specifically for gems, who typically have the better development, then we need to look more towards 4-stars, which is kind of the opposite of how we have been recruiting. But just because these players are not gems doesn't mean that they're not good. 2 quarterback options who I think would be solid for us. David Wooten. He is an improviser from North Charleston, South Carolina. That's a little bit confusing. But he has 92 throw power, pretty good accuracies, 86 for his deep, 79 for medium, 84 for short, all with 82 throw power. And on top of that, he has 3 gold abilities, a gold as well as a platinum for his mentals. So he could be a really good quarterback, 6 foot 191. He is the number 1 ranked quarterback. As for James Gore, he's a field general from Marietta, Georgia. He is 6'2", 224. He only has a few abilities and mentals, gold, 1 silver. 93 throw power, though, has a stronger arm. 88 for short, 85 for medium. So he's fit, I think, just in better better accuracies, with the deep also being at the 82. He has 81 speed, and that was the same as Justin Sorensen before he saw massive increase in this last offseason. So both of these quarterbacks could be solid options. National player, Gore is 8th, 7 for Wotan, number 1 quarterback versus number 2 quarterback. At running back, there was one player who piqued my interest in Juan West, an elusive back from Milledgeville, Georgia, another Georgia player. He's got some gold and silver abilities and mentals, 360 sidestep, might be able to make some big plays happen out in space. With 93 speed and acceleration, already has 89 juke and change of direction, solid carrying 83, 80 break tackle. For us already having a good backfield, I think he is a player that could fit. And there was only one receiver that was a 5-star that was interested in coming here, and that is Jalen Cameron out of Salt Lake City, Utah. A lot of gold abilities, a little bit in terms of the mentals with the natural, silver, and best friend being gold. He has 93 speed, 98 jumping, already at 6'2", 219. His hands seem to be in a pretty good spot. He has release. We don't know much about the route running. Short at an 80 is all we know. And the only 5-star offensive lineman we have our list is Steve Cortez out of Las Vegas, Nevada. He is the number 1 rated athlete. And again, we figure he's going to play some interior offensive line spot at 6'4", 300 pounds. He has the second level ability, really good for that interior offensive line position. Screen enforcer as well. Might fit more than as a guard than at center, which is what they currently have him listed at here. Fan favorite, the natural. He has both run block and pass block ability as an agile offensive lineman. We don't know anything about the power, could be bad, but for now we're going to keep him on our board. As for down defensive lineman, Roy Osborne is an interesting player. He's from Youngstown, Ohio. He has the platinum for winning time, gold for the natural, doesn't have any abilities. He's a run stopper at 6'3", 262. We don't know what any sort of pass rushing ability he does have, but 85 block shedding with 87 strength and 77 speed is intriguing. And with that, it's a skill set we don't really have for the left or right ends. We'll add him to our board. As for further edge guys, we do have Ed Gage, and he's intriguing. Again, he's the number 1 rated player here for right outside linebackers. He has road dog, team player, and quick jump. 83 power moves with 84 speed, 82 strength. We are going to be losing some edge rushers. I would like to bring some in. Because of that, we will be offering him, but we might also be looking for some 4-stars to help round out that group. Off-ball wise, DeMarcus Layburn, a pass cover guy with 70-man coverage, pretty good for linebacker, 78 zone. We don't have the block shedding. That is a little bit of a concern, but the coverage ratings are there. And of the outside linebackers, he's the only one we're going to keep, as the other 2 had no cover ability. We at least need that here in the Pac-12, and I'm sure we'll be able to develop some run-stopping ability. Middle linebacker-wise is a player I am very intrigued with. With the hammer ability, several mentals, all in the silver, you have Bruce Sahara, run stopper out of Mount Ola, North Carolina, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. With 86 tackling, 76 block shed, and 81 zone, all with 88 speed, 90 agility, 93 acceleration. That is the kind of linebacker we like to add here to the Stanford Cardinal. We will be offering a scholarship. At corner, adding with Titus Byler, again the only gem 5-star we could bring in, we have Kevin Gray. He does not have any abilities, but the mentals are all golden. 78 man with 94 speed. He also has 70 zone coverage, so he has a solid floor. Don't know what the press is, but he has some tackling ability. And I believe he would be the first recruit that we might have gone after out of Oklahoma City to be more specific. There is also Dwayne Averill, who has the Platinum Jammer ability. It's the same ability, but gold, that we have in Byler. But Averill has 98 speed. On top of that, 85 press, 81 man coverage. We don't know the zone, but there's just too much to like here to not keep him on the board. And as it stands, that is going to round out our top bit of our class. Again, I'm going to look for some 4-star gems, but these guys, they're going to be the focus. That will conclude Our offseason here today, we did not have as many players leave as I expected, but we did have quite a few players depart. We ended up having 6 or 7 players drafted, and we do have some new starters. At running back for the second straight year, we will have a new starter, not a new face, Larry Sulai, but whoever checks in for him will pretty much be a new face. We haven't seen much from Joe Wesovich nor Taj Jewell. Both will see playing time this season. And then at fullback, we do have a new man in Sterling Babineau with a fantastic name for that fullback. Receiver-wise, it's pretty much going to be new names for the most part. Some have contributed, but really, none of them have been the primary guy. Virgil Rowland, there's high expectation for him this season. George Ball, can he take that next step, which is necessary for this receiving group? And then we need someone from this bunch here to step up, and I'm hoping it will be Vallejo. At tight end, gonna look the same. We got Emmanuel Gomez and Kramer. Two really good tight ends. Offensive line-wise, will look a little bit different. I believe we only have 2 returners. Miles Vaughn, and then down the middle in Cameron Conklin. Cortez did see some playing time last year, but he was not a starter. And as it stands right now, Rick Regas will be the starter at right guard, but we might also see Pete Morton. Both would be new starters for us. And then on the right side, Cliff Robinson. So indeed, only 2 returning starters for the offensive line. Defensive line-wise, for the most part, we're running back the same group, led by Cassius Sampson, Alex Augustine, and Brian Pushall. Getting in the mix, there will be Jason Blair and Nathan Henderson, maybe a couple other names. Off-ball-wise, Kiki Harulahu and James Tuttle will be the primaries. We will see both Darren Sr., hometown hero Oscar Coley. We return 2 of our 3 starters at corner. Alex Marcook, Kevin Salmon, Tyrone Heggie or Legend Nogbar will be that third. And the safety duo return, Max Schlegel and Ty Hawley. As for the true initial starting lineup, we will find that out next time. So make sure you hit that bear icon in that bottom right or scroll down, hit that sub button, tap that bell icon, hit the like button if you enjoy. And if you know someone who will enjoy this series as well, go ahead and share it with them as well. We will be back on Friday to kick off Season 8 against Army, against one of our former players as well out at receiver. We'll see how Mark Cuck handles him and a little bit of a revenge game for that particular player. Kicking off a new season and continuing on here in the Stanford Cardinal Dynasty thanks to your vote.